Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to today's review. I'm Valentine Haminwa of Haminwa Advocates, and today I will be speaking with Nelson Harvey and Carolyn Daudi Kamende, who serve as President and Vice President of the Law Society of Kenya, respectively. Today marks 100 days since Nelson Harvey took over leadership of the Law Society under the clarion call of a brave new bar. He ran his campaign under a three-point agenda to monitor legislation, to protect practice and the practice environment, to defend the rule of law. We will critically review and assess his accomplishments and those of LSK under these three broad endeavors so far. A greater part of the interview will comprise of questions which have already been sent in by members of LSK, as well as members of the broader civil society, critics and commentators, all weighing in on the accomplishments, challenges and priorities of the leadership of the brave new bar in his role as President of the Law Society. We will also give advocates who are present with us an opportunity to ask our speakers a few questions. And with this, to President Harvey and Madam VP, thank you and welcome to today's review. Thank you. Okay. So Harvey, when you ran for office, you promised members to focus on monitoring legislation, protecting law practice environments, and defending the rule of law and constitutionalism. So far, you've racked up quite a list of accomplishments, and some people are even calling you the Messiah. Now, before we get into analyzing your track record, can you please give us an overview of what is the LSK? A lot of members of civil society and some members within the society itself aren't sure exactly what is the mandate and the role of the society, please.
Thank you so much, Valentine. First and foremost, may I sincerely apologize to my learned colleagues as well as members of the public. This event was supposed to start at exactly 1:30. However, and most gratefully, my 100 days in office coincided with the launch of the e-filing system. The Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, David Kenani Maraga, had invited me to witness the launch of this noble project, which ties up with my agenda to expand the practice environment for lawyers. With that, may I therefore address the key concern that has been raised by Madam Haminwa. Now, the Law Society is an entity that is created under the Law Society of Kenya Act 2014. The Law Society is a statutory body. It's a body whose membership is mandatory for all practicing advocates in Kenya. It has a raft of functions set out under the Act, being 14 functions and objectives in total. But fundamental amongst the 14 functions and objectives are the following. One is to assist the government of the Republic of Kenya together with the courts of law in the administration of justice. Two, to assist the government of the Republic of Kenya in oversighting legislation. And three, to improve the general access to justice, not only by advocates, but also by the entire members of the Kenyan public. And it must be understood that the Law Society of Kenya has played a fundamental role insofar as all those 14 functions and objectives are concerned, and in particular, those three. And it is on the basis of that that when I ran for office, I said, I may not exhaust all the 14 objectives and functions within a short period of 2 years. But if I lay a good foundation on the basis of the three main pillars upon which I ran, then the generation that will take after me and many years to come will be able to build upon the foundation that I've left in order that we have a law society that does not benefit only its members, but also the members of the public. Because in times of this kind, where we experience lack of hope and direction, where there appear to be no proper guidance from the legislature, where the executive is hell-bent on domineering over the other two arms of government, where the judiciary, despite all efforts towards ensuring that you have access to justice, appears weakened because of one reason or another, the Law Society stands out as the source of hope, as the beacon of direction, not just lawyers, but to the entire Kenyan fraternity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, related to that, as regards the three-point agenda, which is part of the LSK statute that you've mentioned, what have you done in your first 100 days as regards monitoring legislation and legislative audit? What has the Law Society done so far?
Now, we took over office in circumstances that I must say were unprecedented. That was on the 24th of March 2020. It had been the expectation of the members of the Law Society that will take over office, as has been the tradition for a long period of time, at the annual general meeting of the society that was scheduled for the 30th of March 2020. But as you are all aware, the outbreak of this pandemic interfered with all normal operations of all governmental functions and the functions of private entities, and the Law Society suffered a similar fate. As a result, the AGM was postponed indefinitely, and in the light of that lacuna, my council and myself made a decision that we will assume office in the manner in which we assumed. And this pandemic came with so many challenges, one of which was enumerated in the speech by the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the need to alleviate the pain of Kenyans by reducing the burden of tax on them. There was a bill that was published for consideration by the National Assembly. The Law Society of Kenya, through the Tax Committee, played a fundamental role in ensuring that the law that came out eventually takes into account the specific needs of lawyers, the specific needs of needy Kenyans, so that they are able to survive within the period of the pandemic and for a longer period of time immediately thereafter. That's number one. Number two, the Ministry of Health came up with guidelines and regulations to enable the Republic of Kenya contain this pandemic. And I must say at the onset that it is not our desire as the Law Society of Kenya to interfere with the legislative processes of Parliament, but it's incumbent upon us, and indeed it is a duty given to us by Article 118 and 119 of the Constitution, as well as Section 4 of the Law Society of Kenya Act, to ensure that we participate fully in order that the laws that come out of Parliament are beneficial to the mwananchi in Kenya. Now, you remember the regulations that were put in place insofar as the curfew was concerned, and the manner in which the police came out to enforce it. We tackled it in two aspects. First, we went to court to challenge those regulations, and two, we petitioned Parliament to take into account the needs of the Kenyan people, even as the government takes the noble role of ensuring that we are protected from this pandemic. Now, two decisions were made. One was on the 16th of April 2020, in which the court recognized the need for the police to ensure that they don't use reasonable force in the enforcement of the curfew order. And then this issue eventually came to Parliament, and the discussion that the parliamentarians had to engage in was how best to ensure that the interests of the Kenyans, insofar as the Law Society has indicated the areas of concern, will be met. The subsequent decision was made a week ago, in which the court said that some of these regulations that were being enforced during the curfew and the pandemic period had not been subjected to a participatory approach. They had not been subjected to the legislative aspect of it in the National Assembly. And to that extent, it is a vindication on our part that we have stood out most prominently to ensure that the laws that pass through Parliament are those that meet the threshold set under the Constitution and are those that are beneficial to the people of Kenya. There are many other bills that have been published, which our Law Reform Committee is constantly reviewing to ensure that the interests of the general Kenyan public are taken into account, and more importantly, the interests of lawyers are taken into account. And remember, as I said much earlier during my campaign, I do not want the Law Society to be in court day after day only litigating on the legality or otherwise of laws, when we have an opportunity of presenting our views in Parliament in order that they are incorporated, so that we litigate over disputes that arise out of a law instead of litigating over the validity of that law. So insofar as legislation is concerned, I think we have set a very good foundation upon which we'll be able to ensure that in the coming few months of our tenure in office, we will have a parliament that creates laws that will be there for longevity.
Okay, okay. So thank you. Going to the second prong of your goals, in terms of protecting the practice environment for advocates and the public in general. Just last week we saw here at Gitanga Road, you commemorated the untimely death of our colleague Willie Kimani. No sooner had this commemoration occurred, earlier this week we saw advocates being assaulted and abused as they tried to enter the Kitui County Assembly. What are you doing and what have you done to protect the practice environment and the interests of lawyers in the profession so far?
Now, because that department falls squarely within the hands of my able Vice President, I'll give her an opportunity to weigh in a little bit, and then I will compliment on what she will have said.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
One of the objectives highlighted the law society under Section 4 is the welfare of members. One of the 14 functions and objectives of the LSK, and have been passionate about the welfare of members, and my mantra during the campaign is our welfare first. So what have we done about protecting the environment? Last week, all members saw a number that we announced, a hotline that any member who finds themselves in distress in the course of duty should call. That number is 24 hours. It's on 24 hours call, and it is manned and management time. Besides that, of course, my number is also a hotline, and the same was launched during the commemoration of our late colleague, Mr. Willie Kimani, who unfortunately recently murdered in the line of duty. That is number one. Number two, as the President rightly said, we took office during a very difficult time when the pandemic had hit Kenya, and our members' businesses, our own businesses were affected. So I welcome my committee to come to the issue of ensuring that none of our members that have limited that way. We address the other challenges that they may face, which basically are financial challenges, because our businesses are pretty much stuck by upscaling cost. So what we have done as a committee, we appealed the advantages of establishing a fund, an emergency fund to cater for members' welfare during the hard time. But in the meantime, I came up with an idea that members get assistance for the baby. I started a campaign to collect funds through fundraising using my own number and Bonga coins, and so far I think I have taken care of over 100 young advocates taken the initiative to get involved in the investigation. We issued a press and condemned the act. But other than that, I am in touch with the colleagues who are affected. And we have also reached out to the relevant authorities and organizations to ensure that we send a strong message to the public that they cannot harass and intimidate our members. I am in touch with them. I am following up on the matter. I am basically watching the matter. And I will be traveling to the street tomorrow just to ensure that everything is in order so that we can prosecute those involved in that incident that occurred. We will be following up on the matter to ensure that it will never happen again to any of our members.
Very good.
So we are at advanced stages of establishing the endowment and emergency fund. The trust document is almost completed, and we have reached out to relevant partners and trustees. We're just like on that aspect of members' welfare under Section 4. I am on top of it.
Okay. Thank you, that's very good. And related to that, more specifically regarding the Young Bar Association, they have expressed views that their interests are not being quite championed as regards exploitation in the workplace, low remuneration, harassment, verbal abuse. What are you doing to assist advocates within the profession, advocates relating to each other in terms of our welfare?
May I now say that during my last tenure in Nairobi Institute, I convened the gender committee, and I came up with a sexual harassment and anti-bullying policy. After I had received numerous complaints of young lawyers that they suffer abuse in their workplaces. So the purpose of the policy was to ensure that we safeguard the atmosphere within which our members work. I am keen on the implementation of that policy. That was my baby. And I am keen. There are two aspects of it other than the sexual harassment. There's the anti-bullying. Anti-bullying is where all these other issues are incorporated, whether harassment in the place of work, low pay, non-payment, and all that. They are contained in the anti-bullying aspect of the policy.
Okay.
I am following up with the gender committee. We had a meeting with Ida last week, I think, also, and we are teaming up to ensure that we not only have that policy on paper, but we implement the very main purpose.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. So now back to Harvey. Regarding the third section of the 3 points of your agenda, what are you doing to defend the rule of law and constitutionalism in Kenya? Court orders are not being obeyed. We're replete with examples, not least to mention Miguna. What are you doing as president of the Law Society regarding this agenda item?
Thank you, Valentine. May I acknowledge the presence of my able council member, representative for Nairobi, Caroline Mudeu, who also chairs the Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee. We were with her at the Supreme Court building in the morning, and she deemed it fit to join us. Welcome, Madam Mudeu. Now, rule of law and constitutionalism. This is one pillar of my campaign, which resonates well, not only with lawyers, but the entire Kenyan public, because it is the Kenyan public that benefits when the wheels of justice move effortlessly. This morning, CS Adan Mohammed indicated to us when we were launching the e-registry that the concern that he faces every day when he meets investors is this: What will happen to me as a businessman or a businesswoman when I step on the toes of big people in Kenya? Will I be protected? What will happen to me if I have a commercial dispute which I submit to the courts of law in Kenya? Will I get a just and fair determination? And these questions are quite germane, and they resonate very well with the point that you've just raised. Because if the rule of law and constitutionalism is not respected, then the entire fabric that ties together a civilized society will break and will not have any progression. Now, back to this point, substantively, the questions that we've had to deal with at the onset are this. One is the issue of the appointment of the 41 judges that were recommended for appointment by the Judicial Service Commission. When we took office, we deliberated over this issue. I can tell the members for a fact that before we took the action in respect of which a case has already been filed by the Attorney General and the Solicitor General, I attempted to pursue a diplomatic way of getting reprieve out of this matter. I called the Attorney General, I called the Solicitor General, and we spoke at length. And they indicated that it will be more productive if we were to meet up to resolve this issue. Eventually, a meeting was held on the 13th of May. Unfortunately, the Attorney General and the Solicitor General stopped this meeting and sent their representatives who indicated to us that they didn't have any capacity whatsoever to deliberate or bind on this matter. Nonetheless, we wrote back to the Attorney General on the 13th of May and told him, look, indicate to us how best you want this matter resolved. And if you don't want the matter resolved, then we'll be forced to take action against you. That is why on the 12th of June 2020, the Council of the Law Society drafted and served upon the Attorney General and Solicitor General a motion for the expulsion. And the power to expel a member of the Law Society is given under Section 13 of the Act. So it's a power that is exercisable. You are aware that the two individuals moved to court, and surprisingly, the judiciary, which we want to protect through this action, gave them a court order stopping deliberations in this motion and giving a date outside the date scheduled for the AGM. But that notwithstanding, it is my commitment to ensure that the 41 judges are sworn in, because we need judges to sit, to hear and determine cases. Still on the rule of law and constitutionalism, we have spoken very boldly and firmly, and I dare say swiftly, when the executive makes appointments that do not accord with the law, and in particular the Constitution. You saw when retired Justice Erastus Gijinji was appointed chair of the Tax Appeals Tribunal, we wrote a demand letter and indicated to the Cabinet Secretary in charge of that issue that what he had done was unlawful. As you are aware, the Cabinet Secretary retreated, withdrew that appointment, and made an appointment which was acceptable to the entire membership. Because our friend Nyongesa is somebody who is well known to you, his capacities and accomplishments in the area of tax law are well known. Now we have a chair of the Tax Appeal Tribunal who is conversant and who is able to deal with issues that relate not only to the lawyers but also to the public. Number three, when the President of the Republic of Kenya issued an executive order, the result of which was to bring the judiciary, the Judicial Service Commission, and all other independent commissions within his control as the executive, the Law Society made a demand to the Attorney General and told him, look, what the President has done is wrong. Could you please advise the President to relook the matter and see how best to resolve this matter? And it has been the practice of the Attorney General. He ignored our advice. As we speak right now, there is in court litigation to challenge that action. Number four, I indicated to the members of the public and my fellow colleagues that we will compile all court orders that have been disobeyed, in particular by the state, state agencies and state officers. We now have a register of these court orders, and it will surprise you that as we continue collecting this information, we so far have about 200 orders that have been disobeyed. Amongst these orders are decrees for the payment of money, which total to about 300 billion. The government of the Republic of Kenya has refused to honor decrees. 300 million is such a colossal sum of money, which, if available to the public, will have helped improve the general economy and development. There are other areas in which we are liaising with partners, both state and non-state actors, to ensure that the rule of law and constitutionalism prevails in Kenya. And it is my expectation, and it is my request to all of you Kenyans of whatever cadre, professionals of whatever nature, to come together and ensure that there is vigilance. If appointments are being made in a particular statutory body, do they accord with the Constitution? Are they in tandem with the law? Is there public participation? Is there regional and ethnic balance? Do the appointments meet the professional or academic qualifications? These are issues that need to be interrogated so that we empower individuals who have the capacity, the wherewithal, the determination to serve, not to reward people just because they are affiliated with you. Because there is need to weed out chronism, ethnicity in these appointments. And last amongst this category of issues is the appointment insofar as the Secretary of the Teacher Service Commission is concerned. 2 days ago, I wrote a letter to the Attorney General indicating to the Attorney General that the term of the holder of that office has come to an end. And under the law, the holder of that office must be recruited competitively. There are many other areas of oversight, including Nairobi Metropolitan Services, where we're asked to appoint one of our members as a member of the Physical Planning Committee, who will have eventually been a chair. We wrote back and told Major General Badi that we do not recognize that entity called Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Of course, there was a lot of backlash, including from members of the public and members of the society. And as day succeeds night, that matter was taken before the court, and we are vindicated. We will continue doing this because it is our desire to improve the quality of governance in this country.
Okay. Thank you for that. Your response has focused on the efforts that you're making at a legal level. They've also focused on violations by state actors. Can you tell me a bit more about what you and the Law Society are doing in terms of, I don't want to say ordinary disputes, but the common dispute that a person might have with their neighbor and they owed a decree of, let's say, 50,000 shillings. What are you doing in order to enforce the rule of law in terms of civic education, legal literacy programs, assisting the average Kenyan who has a legal dispute to enforce their court orders, where it doesn't necessarily concern the state or large sums of money or big issues of constitutional dispute?
Thank you, Valentine. The rule of law is beneficial irrespective of who the respondent or who is required to honor a court order or a decree is. And it's very fundamental, therefore, that members of the public recognize that if you submit
So in your manifesto, you made a pledge, and I'm going to quote exactly what you said. You said, "I will not affiliate myself with any political party or with the state." Are the claims of LSK's neutrality on political issues truly defensible? There's some perception that you're a Nazarite. Other people think you're aligned to Jubilee, a certain faction within Jubilee. There's some people who've even said that you have a sponsor and that you're a puppet of certain political interests. What do you have to say about that?
Oh, I believe, Valentine, you are referring to the undertaking that I made. And the undertaking went as follows: that I will serve the society diligently and gallantly with integrity and accountability. I will not affiliate myself with any political party or the state. I will not take any state appointment, commendation, or award. Let me pause there for a minute. Now, there are those who in the recent past have categorized me as one affiliated to the Vice President, Dr. William Ruto, as a Tanga. Let me make this quite clear. Dr. William Ruto is somebody I've known for a long period of time. And in the event that his camp appears to have been isolated with the result that they resonate with the ideals that I've held as a revolutionist, why should I be blamed? Because they may be the default beneficiary of what we are saying and what we are speaking about. But wholesomely, I have ensured that I abide by the vow that I took. But let's look at this issue more objectively, because we'll be told the Law Society is supposed not to engage in politics. What is politics? There is a study called political science. And if you interrogate political science more thoroughly, you will find that 80% of political science is law, and the rest is social affairs. Because what is the framework under which the government of Kenya is run? Is it not run under the Constitution? It's run on the basis of statutes. And when those in power do not want to govern the country in accordance with the Constitution, in accordance with the statute, we must call them out, be it the President of the Republic of Kenya, be it the Vice President, be it the leader of the opposition, or anybody. And that is our responsibility. And Nelson Harvey is not the first servant of the Law Society to do this. What I'm doing is not novel. It's been done before. Dr. Gibson Kamau Kuria was the chairman of this organization at a point in time when we had the clamor for multi-party democracy. What about Dr. Willie Mutunga? What about Honorable Paul Mwite? You remember at one point in time, a member of the Law Society took the counsel of Honorable Paul Mwite to court, indicating that they need not comment about matters politics. And why is there this push society from issues of great concern? It's because they know lawyers are better placed to advise, shape opinion in the manner in which good governance should be done. And they do not want the participation of lawyers at this particular point in time, because there is need to push a constitutional amendment. And if the public is not informed of what is necessary in this particular instance, then the public is likely to be railroaded through a path in which the constitutional amendments will be forced upon them. And I say this with a lot of conviction, because these are not my views. I remember last year at the annual conference that was held in August in Mombasa, lawyers resolved unanimously that the question, the problem that bedevils administration in Kenya is not inadequacy of the law, it's inadequacy of good leadership. It's an issue of implementation, it's not an issue of reform. So that when we are told that we have a moment, what is this moment? I agree there is a moment, but it's not a moment for constitutional change. And let me echo the words of Honorable Martha Karua. It is a moment for change. Change of what? Change of leadership. Because the problem is not in the seat. The problem is in the seat holder. You cannot replace the seat. You replace the individual. And lawyers must always speak insofar as this issue is concerned. And I'll give you many examples. Sorry, let me just give you a few examples. Fidel Castro was a lawyer. Nelson Mandela was a lawyer. Barack Obama is a lawyer. So if you don't want lawyers to participate fully in the leadership of this country, you are turning logic over its head, because the responsibility of leadership, I dare say, is one that is participatory. And there is no way in which lawyers should be excluded from this serious enterprise. In particular, at this point in time, when there is need for us to relook the structure and the means of governance in this country.
So related to the issue of special interest and financing, Caroline, can you just explain to me how is the Law Society of Kenya funded? Statutory body, do you receive funding from taxes and the exchequer?
I'm the chair of Staff and Finance.
Okay.
And the Law Society is a statutory body where members pay subscriptions. So the Law Society depends on funds from our own members when they pay for practicing certificates.
Okay.
The Law Society, also part of our functions under Section 4 of Act number 21 of 2014, is we can invest and raise funds. The Law Society, through the CPDs, also finances its own activities. We collect funds from members when they attend CPDs, and currently we are also getting funds from the webinars that we are hosting. We also fundraise during the annual conference.
Okay.
From well-wishers, and once in a while we get partnership, like we have a partnership with a body called SAD, in these containers behind here.
Okay.
So we, as the Law Society, do not get any funds from the government. We regulate our own finances. We get monies from our members and use the monies in and for our members.
Okay.
So
there's
we do
no
not.
special.
There's no special. We are not in the government's budget. Yes. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Okay, good. That's good to know. So on the structure of the Law Society, I'd like to discuss the council of the Law Society. There are 8 members in the council, of which you will vote 2 of the 8. The other 6 seats comprise of 4, which are specifically for upcountry representatives. Now, the way the current voting structure requires a majority vote from every advocate in the country. The majority of advocates are housed in Nairobi and Mombasa. So there have been views from members of the society that it's improper for the deciding factor to come from Nairobi as to who's going to be an upcountry representative. So for instance, with those 6 remaining seats in the council, 4 have been taken up by upcountry representatives, majority of whom were voted in by Nairobi members. So you find one of the, and there are 8 regional upcountry branches. So for example, Mount Kenya branch has been completely excluded from this Law Society council. Is there a way that the voting structure could be changed so that upcountry representative votes are conducted at a branch level, as opposed to being decided by Nairobi and Mombasa, where the majority of lawyers exist?
You want to take it up, Madam VP? Yeah.
I remember during the campaign, this issue arose, which is a point of concern. However, my view is that we have 8 branches that have been established by the Act, and we have branch chairs,
Okay.
and we have branch executive committee members, and we have chapters and centers who have representatives.
Okay.
So to the extent that every member of the society is represented at the branch level, that mandate has been fulfilled.
Okay.
Well, I must also agree and admit that the majority of the votes come from Nairobi. I think we have almost 70% or so members who vote from Nairobi, and to a larger extent, they determine the country representatives. Unless first we change the act, then that has to stay. But my view is because we already have officials at the branch level, we still have representatives. We still need, the council still needs representatives from this country.
Okay.
Regardless of where they're from. So when they also make decisions, find members come from their country taking firm decisions on funding and any other activities of the branch. So we still need them at the national level. Otherwise, if we leave this we leave the council to have representation from Nairobi, then we will not get feedback from the branches. Section, section, I think 27, that creates the branches, also creates let me say a function of the national office in as far as branches are concerned. It gives the branches the functions of taking care of welfare and practice matters, but it also tells the branches, come to the national office and raise any matter that you need addressed from the national office.
Okay.
So we get the branches to country through their country, and that is how the national office rolls out some of these mandates, the CIL branches. So
Okay.
my feeling
There's adequate representation.
is adequate representation.
Okay.
And I have to say that at the national level, it address any issues that arise in our country, Nairobi, any other region where we have to approach. So,
Okay, that's good to know.
I don't know whether the president is one.
Yeah, let me weigh in on the issue. See, the most unfortunate thing about democracy is that its certainty is often limited to numbers, quantity. It doesn't really give a good outcome insofar as quality is concerned. No wonder, therefore, when I took my council to the All Saints Cathedral for blessings, people were shocked. Why is it that you have 10 women with you and you're just 2 men? How did this happen? And then I told them, but you guys said you wanted women in the leadership of the Law Society. Why are you complaining? And then look at it from the other side. We have a vice president and the president of the Law Society who have also come from Nairobi. These are the outcomes of democracy. But we must always realize that there are times that you may need affirmative action to combat the unpredictable outcomes of democracy.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the structure of the Law Society of Kenya, it has created the 8 branches. It has also created the council members. It has created the office of the vice president and the president. But the roles are not clearly delineated, so that most of our work ends up being done through committees. And the president often will need to set the agenda of how the council will function. There is this school of thought, the election of the vice president and the president alone, and we let the other representatives be elected by the branches. There are the pros and the cons for such an option, and I'm aware that there is a motion that has been made by a member to have the act amended in order that elections are conducted in the manner in which I've just enumerated here in above. That we have the president and the vice president, and then the rest of the council members are elected by the branches. Look, if that is the view of members, then as I've said, these are the outcomes of democracy. But if the members are of the view that we need to go that route, then make that decision through the AGM. On our part, and as indicated in my manifesto, I will champion legislation. And if the members want legislation to the effect that we have elections conducted in this pattern, I'll be the first one to support it. If members don't want it, I'll be the first one to support the measure. Thank you.
And do you feel you're receiving adequate support from your council as is? Just in terms of your day-to-day obligations?
The most unfortunate thing about running for council is that we don't have parties, neither do we have independent candidates. So you will find council members who are otherwise affiliated to other presidential candidates still suffer from the slumber of campaigns, and will want to bring their ideologies within the operations of the council. This is quite unfortunate. All the presidential candidates affiliated themselves with the outcome of this election. So I'll be frank with you, and I don't blame the council members, because perhaps it's the failure of early realization that we're out of the campaign period and we now have a duty. Because truth be told, I know of many council members who did not affiliate themselves with me, but I don't have a problem with them. We have a duty to perform within this. If myself and Biambo there are not friends, but we find ourselves at sea and he's holding the other end of the log and I'm holding the other end of the log, we'll maintain the balance so that we go ashore.
Yeah.
But if we start fighting at sea, we'll sink. And this is the message that I want to give the council members. And let them also realize that, as said by Sir Charles Kanjama, Harvey is one gentleman who did not even know how to ride a tuk-tuk. But if you're not careful, he'll end up flying the plane that is called the presidency of the Law Society. And it came to pass. Why? Because there was a lot of bickering amongst many of the candidates who were previously in council. So I want to encourage my council members that there is need for us to work together. Steve Ogola describes me very well, that Harvey is swift and firm, and often this character trait is misconstrued as belligerent and arrogant. And I think there could be no better evaluation of Nelson Harvey than that given by Steve Ogola, because I have this need for urgency. And this need is not peculiar to me. Many will say that Harvey is coming very fast. What do you mean Harvey is coming very fast? Do you know at what age David Cameron became Prime Minister of England? He was Prime Minister of England at the age of 43. And before him, in 1812, Lord Liverpool, Prime Minister, at the age of 22. Herod the Great, by the time he died at the age of 36, had built 3 cities in Israel, Masada, Caesarea, and Herodeum, at the age of 36. Here I am, 44, and you're telling me that I'm going too fast for my age. Let's not turn logic over its head. We don't have the luxury of time. And as I've told you, within the next remaining few months of our tenure here, we need to do things. We need to develop LSK Plaza here. We need to leave a legacy where if Mudeu becomes vice president, where if Linus Mwangi becomes president, where if Aska Kwamboka or Kari becomes president, they'll be able to say, look, like the temple in Jerusalem, they'll say, these are the stones that were laid by Harvey, and I want to build on them to give us a good legacy so that we thrive and prosper, not individually, but collectively.
So related to that, in terms of your efficiency and your leadership style, you've certainly accomplished a lot in a short space of time. People are calling you the Messiah. However, other people perceive you as having a dictatorial leadership style. They say that you weren't that way in the campaign, but now that you're in office, you've become a bit of a dictator. With specific reference, there was a video which was circulating on social media in which you had a heated exchange with one of the members of your council. What do you have to say about that? It was regarding, I think, the ratification of a motion to take action against the Solicitor General and the Attorney General. That's what the video was about. You had a meeting with your council and...
Somebody posted on Twitter that Harvey has become a small dictator. No wonder, therefore, they share a birthday with Adolf Hitler. Very unfortunate statements. But the truth of the matter is this. Insofar as that incident is concerned, these are the facts. The council unanimously resolved on the 11th of May 2020 that they will take two actions. One was to commence proceedings for the expulsion of the Attorney General and the Solicitor General. And two, that they will also petition Parliament to impeach the President of the Republic of Kenya. Those were not my ideas. Those were the ideas of the council, unanimous. Now, when it came to the drafting and signing of the motion on the 12th of June 2020, one member just decided not to participate in the process. And if you are to interrogate that video more thoroughly, you realize that there was a lot of interruption from that member, not only against me, but against any other speaker who spoke. Your question is this, that Harvey has become a dictator, yet he was not a dictator before. I think if I'm a dictator, then I was a dictator before. And the membership was quite cognizant of this fact. But there's no credibility in that claim that Harvey is a dictator. Let me quote what Canon Ambrose Weda said in a webinar organized by the TIBA. What did Ambrose Weda say? Did he not say that there are people who grow by force? Yeah. And look, if I have the ability to run faster than you, you can't tell me to wait for you. Perhaps you just need to improve on your speed. Maybe this is what is always erroneously perceived as heavy-handedness. But perhaps more progressively, there is need for lawyers, not just members of the law society, but also the leadership, to acquaint themselves with the law. Because you are seated here as council members with the responsibility of providing guidance. Do not leave it upon me to read the law for you, because I'll become a little bit impatient if you do not understand the obvious. For instance, the case of Professor Wangari Maathai and the Attorney General on the issue as to whether you can exercise a constitutional right or a statutory right in the absence of rules. And if I become impatient on account of your failure of understanding, I really do not think that I'm the person to blame. It is you to blame. Go and read the law.
Fair enough, thank you. So Caroline, I just wanted to go back to the question of funding and finances at the Law Society. You mentioned that most of the revenue comes from our annual dues and some fundraising at the AGM. Most of the profession have been affected by COVID-19. I don't know anyone who's really thriving right now, not even Microsoft. So what is the fiscal health of the Law Society right now? What is our financial status? I think you circulated reports. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to look at them. Can you just give us a synopsis of how things stand financially for the society right now?
Accountant and the auditor for advice on where we are. We have not fetched much from the CPD, but I would confirm that we have reached the same level as we were last year in terms of members paying for PCs. Members are still taken out of their PCs. Because we, at the beginning of our term, we gave waiver. So we have had more members take up PCs. So we, as a society, are not financially crippled. We will evaluate that probably at the end of this month.
But the society is still safe financially.
So Still staying on COVID, one of the big accomplishments is the classification of lawyers as essential service providers. Will this categorization last even beyond COVID, that we'll have certain exceptions, I don't know, regarding certain permissions? And why did you feel it was necessary for lawyers to be classified within that category?
Okay. First and foremost, I want to dissuade most of our members of this notion that the essential service provider card is a license for you to go partying and drinking and go back home late. Look, if you are arrested by the policeman at night and you are drunk, do not flash your essential service provider card. Neither do you call me. Don't even call the VP. Because this card is intended to enable you perform your duties as an advocate within and outside the curfew limitation times, to move from one place to another. We need not abuse this card. And it must be understood as lawyers, it is our obligation to lead insofar as complying with the law is concerned. We may have a lot of dissatisfaction with the manner in which the government declared the curfew, the manner in which the government declared the restriction of movement. But I'll tell you, on my part, I'm the first person to obey those laws, because laws are valid until otherwise declared invalid by a court of law. So I urge members of the Law Society to comply with the law, even when you enjoy the essential service provider card. For how long will it last? It's supposed to last for a limited period of time, until when the government declares that there is no longer curfew, there is no longer restriction of movement. But way forward, and I've had this discussion with the Director of Public Prosecution as well as the Inspector General of Police, we need to have a conducive environment where lawyers will practice and where their practice will be respected, where you will be facilitated. We want, going forward, to ensure that when lawyers are engaged in perilous assignments, they're given police protection. And this protection is not limited to lawyers. I also want this protection to extend to other professionals. I want this protection to extend to members of the public. And when we commemorated 4 years of the killing of Willie Kimani and his client and taxi driver, we reached this armistice with the Director of Public Prosecution that we will petition Parliament to undertake law reform, with the result that we'll have policemen restricted in the manner in which they can engage with the public, especially when they're conducting an arrest or an operation. We want policemen to be identified with their uniform, rank, number. We don't want policemen roaming around in Subarus that are unmarked, policemen roaming around in plain clothes. How can we identify them and differentiate them from criminals? You understand? That's perilous. So that the only category of policemen who can be in civilian clothes are those entrusted with the responsibility of gathering intelligence. But if you're coming to my home to arrest me and you are in a jeans and a jacket, I have no reason whatsoever to open the door for you, because you may as well be a criminal. You understand? So that in particular, insofar as it relates to lawyers, we want the practice environment to expand. When you go to a police station, you must be given preferential treatment. You should not be told that we are interrogating your client, so stay out. And these are colonial relics. And the Inspector General of Police, as well as the DPP, must understand that we are living in an age where rights given to Kenyans must be respected. And who is the defender of rights other than lawyers? Why will you, as a Kenyan, want to be interrogated by the police in the absence of your advocate? So we want to improve the manner in which the relationship between advocates and police progresses.
Maybe I can just make a comment on that aspect. Of course, we've had a few members who have found themselves in the hands of the police, probably in the line of duty after the passing hours. have spoken to the OCS of a particular police station, they have got out. So we've had members who have been arrested and taken to the police station, but have been very cooperative, especially where we have explained that the lawyers, especially when they establish that the lawyers are not coming from clubs and coming from work. And I must give credit to Bigiri Police Station. On Friday, one of our colleagues reached out to me and told me that she was seated there recording a statement and it was past 9. I called the DCIO of that station and he assured me that they will drive her to her home because she had left her car in town and she got help. So on this emergency services card, we haven't really had many challenges because the authorities have cooperated and they have listened to us. I think I received 99% of these calls and I haven't had a member send at a police station when I had reached out to the OCS of the OCPD.
Okay. So it's good to know that the permission is not being abused and people are actually working overtime. Please, can you give me your views on rogue practitioners and quacks and people masquerading as lawyers? It's something that's happening often. A lot of times it's by pupils who are anxious to start work, maybe make a little money. However, it's cheapening and embarrassing the profession. What is your administration doing about masquerading in the profession?
I take it or you'll take it? Take it, yeah.
We have a committee, practice and standards committee that the CEO follows up facts.
Okay.
But during the campaigns, what I saw
is that we have many satellite offices.
many of our members just establish offices all over and leave their clerks and assistants who are not advocates to handle.
Yeah.
That is a cause of concern. That is where we should start as a law society. Because all these quacks are people who who work with our stamps. They use our stamps, they use our offices, and that responsibility should of curbing that practice. So,
Society, we
have a register. We will send out a call to members that we will not entertain satellite offices because that is where that practice thrives.
Okay.
Maybe on that issue again, when I started as an advocate some quite many years ago, we used to have judicial officers having a register or a record of paid up members, active members. And whenever I would introduce myself, my name is Caroline Kamende, they would say, wait a minute, give me a minute. So we need to synergize with the judiciary to ensure that they also help us weed out these quacks.
Yes.
What we were launching today, the e-filing, may be also one of the ways that we will curb this vice because they would require you to put in your P105 number. I think we made that proposal that I need to key in my P105 number. And this virtual hearing will also be the end of court.
Yes.
I mean, when I'm in the waiting room or I'm in court virtually, they can tell that this is an advocate or this is not an advocate. So that may help, but we are still working on that. I know our CEO is very passionate about court, but we need the support of the judiciary and our members.
Yes.
Because every town, and especially also the branch there, they know each other. So they know this one is a quack, this one is not a quack. We know each other. So it is us to call them out.
Okay.
Yes. President can pick it up from
Thank you.
Yeah. Tomorrow we'll be attending the admission of a number of advocates. Thereafter on Thursday. When is tomorrow? Tomorrow is Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah, so tomorrow is the first batch of admission. The second batch is on Friday. We've designed an online system in which effective tomorrow will cut paperwork at the Secretariat of the Law Society. The application for a PC will henceforth be fully digital. There'll be no paperwork. And then we have coordinated with the judiciary. We've also coordinated with the Ministry of Lands, and we want to coordinate with all other departments that interrelate with the delivery of justice, including the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, KIPI, other tribunals, to ensure that they have a digital register of advocates who have practicing certificates. And the word quack and unqualified persons is not just limited to those individuals who have not studied law. It encompasses us who have not taken practicing certificates. So that when I tackle you on Twitter and ask you, have you taken a practicing certificate? You are a quack. You are an unqualified person. You have no business engaging with us. Because as learned friends, we need to protect the dignity and honor of this profession. Because if we don't do that, we will not be respected by the public. Discipline starts with us. And in the next coming few months, we want to ensure that this system works seamlessly. And we want it to work seamlessly with your consent, not with any propulsion on account of consequences. That is the only way in which changes can be received for a lasting goal. So help us, please. We need to weed out quacks. We need to weed out unqualified persons. It starts with you. And there is no handicap because back fees have been waived. Webinars are now online. You can gain knowledge, you can get the points from the comfort of your office or from the comfort of your home. But if you are in bed, please don't go horizontal. You need to be upright as you attend these webinars so that the information gets into your mind and it's preserved. That is the way forward.
So related to this, what is the Law Society doing to stymie corruption in the courts, particularly at the registries? Bench fixing, files go missing, date fixing that's appropriate for one party but not the other. Please can you tell us what you're doing, especially with the launch of the e-filing system?
Yes, with the launch of the e-filing system today, the Chief Justice gave us his undertaking. And is a man who's undertaking to take the World Bank, not just a local bank. The cases of files disappearing, the cases of files missing will no longer be there. And I want to agree with the Chief Justice because I've interrogated that system. It's waterproof. It may have some teething problems, but we're going into an age where we will have to discard paper and embrace technology. Bench fixing and corruption in the judiciary, we will work together with our two representatives of the Judicial Service Commission to ensure that individuals recruited as judges and magistrates meet the threshold of a judicial officer who is capable, competent, and suffers no bias or influence in making decisions. And I want you to be vigilant. We need to call out judicial officers who are either corrupt or corrupt. When sometimes I come out and say this, I'm ridiculed by those with the lesser knowledge on matters that we're talking about. I've been on record as having made a complaint that resulted in the removal of a judge from office for corruption and being published. And it is something that is admitted even from the bench, where judges and magistrates who are corrupt. That's a fact. And they are not corrupt because of their own making. They are corrupt because some of us aid in corruption. It starts with that. And if you have a good case, you will win. And if you find for a fact that you've lost, not because you didn't have a case, but because a judge or a magistrate was seen somewhere cutting deals, then tell us, we'll follow. But let's not vilify judges and magistrates without evidence. In the event that you have to confront a judicial officer, come with good evidence. But most important is for us to remember that you are first an advocate, and second a magistrate, and third a judge. They are part of us. We'll defend their independence, but we'll hold them accountable, because this is a seesaw. The wheels of justice must move seamlessly.
Now, I received a question about the collaborative work that your administration is doing. What collaboration or what type of work do you do with CLE, the Council for Legal Education, and Kenya School of Law in terms of curriculum development, preparing advocates for the reality of practice once they leave Kenya School of Law? And then outside of that, what work and collaborations does LSK have with regional bar associations and international bar associations in order for us to share as well as learn best practices in other jurisdictions?
I think it's a matter of public knowledge that the failure rate from Kenya School of Law to the land. Where do we apportion blame? Do we apportion blame on the teachers or the students? I think blame should be apportioned on both. We are ridiculed every day, but when you go to a hotel, when you go to a supermarket, when you go to a social gathering, all those people will tell you, I want my daughter to study law. I want my son to study law. If lawyers are such a bad people, why are you insisting that you want your children to study law? Because you force your children to go and study law, yet their minds and propulsion is not in practice anymore. Let your child determine what he or she wants to be. Because the practice of law is a calling. You must have the passion to practice law. When some of us joined the university, we joined the university with very high grades. And we used to read. We used to have a basin of cold water and put our feet to read. Nowadays, these fellows just want to Google and get answers. Remember, before material ended up in Google, it was research from the primary document. And the best evidence is the primary evidence. So there is a failure on the part of the students. And this, I must say, without any fear of contradiction. Because when I was campaigning, I was sugarcoating. But now I'm now serving. You must be determined to be a good lawyer. Because if you're not determined to be a good lawyer, you'll be an embarrassment. And you've seen many of these embarrassments coming on national TV, holding themselves as lawyers. Yet they have no basic knowledge of what is required. Let me also apportion blame on the teachers in two aspects. I think most of them are determined to earn a living, but they don't have sufficient time to dedicate towards the study of law. When we were in Parklands, very few of our lecturers were practitioners. And even those who were practitioners, they got sufficient time to dedicate towards the teaching of law. Right now, you'll find a law professor teaching in 4 universities. Is it humanly possible? It is not. And we need to face these realities. And the second blame also goes to the administration of this university. You remunerate these lecturers well so that they can dedicate their time in the training of law. What about finance? We have seen several officers from Kenya School of Law who have been arraigned in court. Then there is a problem, because we spend a lot of money at Kenya School of Law. Is it worthy? We now begin to see where the money is going. And as the president of the Law Society, I have asked for a report from our representative at the Council of Legal Education of Kenya School of Law as to what really is happening. Are they taking care of the interests of the students? Are they cognizant of the quality of lawyers that must come out of that institution and join us? Because if they are not, there is a failing that we need to address. But this is an issue that we may implement for a period of time. I will not say that we'll have deliverables within days or months, but we are determined to ensure that we have quality advocates getting into the legal market.
Let me check the second link of that question. What arrangements we have or associations, international bars.
Okay.
LSK is a member of ELF. So part of the fees that members pay as subscription, 1,000 shillings goes to ELF. LSK is also a member of the International Bar Association, and we subscribe. And we allow our members to attend the conferences.
Okay.
And pick one or two, attend and learn one or two things at international conferences.
Okay.
On the issue of mass failure at KSL, we will study the report and see how we implement it. So these are a report that is done by a committee that has been given that work to study, analyze, and investigate where we have mass failures at KSL.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So hopefully things will improve with CLE and KSL. Okay. You mentioned the International Bar Association and how members of the Law Society can attend their symposiums and functions and conferences. A lot of members have complained that the price of CPDs themselves are prohibitive, let alone international conferences. What are you doing to make CPDs more accessible to people? I know you've tried to make them virtual during the time of COVID and even reduce the price. But there's been requests from members for free CPDs, at least one or two. What are your views on that?
On the free CPDs, every member of the ADMs at the branches, because the council allocated one free CPD to every branch awaiting an AGM. The other one that a member can get is during the AGM. Usually we allocate one free CPD. Originally, all the CPDs were held in hotels, and I think the CPD committee, we also used to raise this issue during the last council and also in this council. What do we do to lessen this burden to our members? And the analysis was done, realized that some good percentage of this money goes to the hotel. We requested for a report during this COVID period to the President and the CPD committee on what we can do to reduce the amount. I think the CPD committee they look at the report, and an agreement was reached that 1,500 would be the reasonable amount, because I think there are costs that are met. Probably many members may not know, but we pay the speakers and facilitators. Now that we are not moving, they're still being paid, and also we meet the transmission charges. So 1,500 was adopted as the reasonable amount. Yeah, that's what I would say for now about the CPD.
Okay.
But I will confirm that members are still raising issues. We are still at the council looking into it. What options do we have to lessen them?
Okay. And it might also be helpful for members to know that council members do not get paid. You do not receive salaries, as far as I'm told. Is that correct?
Yes, we
Okay.
are not paid as council members, but we get sitting allowance
Okay.
of 10,000 shillings that is in the public domain, and
Okay.
meetings as per the LSA Act is
Okay.
once a month.
Okay.
Every month, we meet from the second Monday of the month, so once a month. Yeah.
Madam Kamina, you could allow me to speak a little bit on the CPD?
Sure.
Yeah, there's been this false construct that the society earns a lot of money from CPD. We have reviewed the books. For the period January and February, the society spent a total of 33 million on CPD. The income from CPD was 30 million. Where did the rest of the 3 million come from? Between 11th of May and now, we've held several CPDs through webinars. I do not think we've earned a lot of money, but I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that we have not spent any of the society's money. And I saw a request or a question today on Twitter by my very good friend, Jacqueline Manani, asking, how much of the society's money have you used to print the album? Let me remind Jacqueline Manani and many other naysayers, Harvey and his team are not going to make an income out of the Law Society. In fact, where we can, we'll spend our own monies to ensure that the society thrives. Because it is a good leader, he who dips in his pockets to ensure to the prosperity of the people that he's serving. And let me also tell them, the event you see here being organized has been organized from the pocket of the VP and myself, not monies of the society. We have in a fixed deposit about 70 million, monies that are due to the members because these are the collections that were received on accounts of the arbitration center. I was shocked to realize that before me, these monies had been kept here and not released to members. When we meet on the 23rd of July, I will ask that you give me the permission to return this money where it came from. We don't want to hold people's money in the false notion that we have money. If we don't have money, as we don't have money. It's as simple as that. I thought we had money here which will enable us break ground for LSK Plaza. Friends, there is a problem. We got no money. The only money we have is to sustain us for the short period of time, maybe 6 months or 8 months. We must therefore innovate and look for ways. And when you are outside there, don't just critique without the basis of facts. Come and look at the books. You'll see for yourself. We need money, but we're not going to levy members to develop Gitanga. We want members to make an objective consideration as to whether or not we should sell South Sea and invest the money in this property. We need members to volunteer so that when LSK Plaza is eventually up, you will take pride in saying that I willingly contributed towards this project. There will be no compulsion. Nothing will be tied to your PC application. But I tell you, there are many members who have indicated their willingness. Noble projects. Don't be left behind.
I would like you to discuss more about the LSK Plaza that you've just mentioned and the LSK building behind us here, just Gitanga Road. But before we get to that, I just want to ask a question about your Twitter account and politics, and then we'll get back to that question. Okay. A member of the Law Society has requested that you please keep off of politics. And he makes specific reference to a recent ruling by a magistrate, Elizabeth Juma, in which she sentenced Sirisa MP John Waluke and Grace Wahungu to hefty fines and in the alternate jail sentences. Immediately afterwards, you took to social media and you described the sentence as criminal, and you said that you do not celebrate fraudulent convictions, and you would deal with the judicial officer with military precision. Is this an opinion of the Law Society, your personal opinion, and what exactly did you mean?
The war of corruption must be fought. And friends, I ask you to be in the front line in the war against corruption. But the war against corruption should never be weaponized, because if it is weaponized, it will hurt you, it will hurt me, it will hurt her. In the early 80s, there was a gentleman by the name Master Sergeant Samuel Doe. One day he stormed out of the barracks, went and killed the then President Tolbert, and gave his ministers a 4-hour trial, after which they were taken to the shores of Monrovia ensured. Why? Because he said they were corrupt. Did Liberia improve? Look, in this particular case, many of those castigating me do not have the benefits of facts. An arbitral award was made in favor of errant supplies. That arbitral award was confirmed as a decree of the High Court. National Cereals and Produce Board sought to set aside that decree and award. They lost. They went to the Court of Appeal and lost. Garnishee proceedings were commenced. The monies were paid from KCB account to errant supplies on the propulsion of a court order. Look, it turns logic over its head for you to say that a judgment has not been set aside, an award has not been set aside, but you criminalize the recipient of that money. And this is not politics. This law, one of, and I say so with a lot of authority. Was it 2 days ago that a senior state counsel by the name Alexander Muteti was on Citizen justifying their position? Why does the state want to justify the position on media and restrict lawyers from commenting about it? Not so far away, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission told us they are in partnership with the judiciary. A few days thereafter, they told us they are in partnership with the media. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, DPP, in partnership with the judiciary, in partnership with the media, they are shrinking the media space so that you don't speak.
So that's your position. You say because it resonates with you, it's essentially the position of the society.
The position of the law society will always be communicated either through the official channel of the law society, or if it's communicated through my hand, it will go. Opinion will come out as DOS. So it's upon you to check in what capacity am I speaking. Am I speaking as the president of the Law Society of Kenya, or am I speaking as the lawyer for Major Waluke in court? It's not my business to tell you, now, I'm now speaking as the president of the Law Society of Kenya. I'm now speaking as defense counsel. No, you should be able to differentiate the two. Because you elected me in office knowing that I'm a courtroom lawyer. I'm an accomplished courtroom lawyer. I will not stop being a courtroom lawyer because you've elected me president. Kwani mnaenda kunipikia ugali jioni? Where will I go?
Okay, thank you. And DOS is Duke of Soysha, is that correct?
Yes, Duke of Soysha.
Okay. Good.
It's an acronym hitherto given to me.
Good to know. So, in the Law Society deciding to enjoin itself formally in litigation matters, how are these decisions made that the Law Society is going to be an amicus curiae or an actor in a particular public interest litigation? How are those decisions made? Or is it just on a rolling need-by-need basis?
Madam VP, you can take that.
Sometimes we are sued as interested parties. And when we are sued, like we were sued in a recent matter in Mary, that there was a matter where some gentleman called Mr. Mainda was seen on social media, left with a corpse and talking late wine. So in such an event, we have a PIO committee that now makes a decision and says we are rebutting this suit. We want an advocate and the other matters, as the president says, are matters where we take up, probably they have been filed, they are highlighted, and we feel as a society we need to perform some of our functions under Section 4 of the Act to guide the court and also the public on matters on the position, the true position of the law as the president says, so that the court is not misled. So when we identify such matters, then we discuss as a council that we appoint an advocate to represent us. Above all, and in line with the president's number one agenda, is that we should not be acting as interested parties. We move to court whenever we see abuses of the law by the state and any other violators of the Constitution. So we initiate the proceedings. I think after we took office, we will see many of the cases that we have filed in court, we have filed with the petitioners or applicants. So we do not just necessarily have to wait to be enjoined or to enjoin a matter. We currently monitor legislation. The president is passionate about that. We have a legislation department here. We also have a committee that monitors what is happening. If we feel that something is wrong, we go to court to move swiftly. So we've done a series of this. The example with the COVID-19 rule, the curfew, so we've been at the forefront. So we listen to news, we pick the politics, we pick from tweets, we pick from legislation, we pick from social media, and go to court to in line with our functions and objectives under the Law Society of Kenya.
So thank you. So,
The president will say something.
No, my able vice president has adequately addressed that concern.
So as I wind down with my questions before we pass it on to the floor, one of the hallmarks of your leadership has been that it's a majority women, not only in the membership of the Law Society, but in the council itself. Traditionally, it was a profession dominated by men. I think in the UK, they used to call it a gentleman's society. Now it became a law society. Before that, it was the legal fraternity. Some people are saying it should now be called a sorority. What is the society doing regarding the 2/3 gender rule at government level?
Good. Yesterday, Madam VP and I met a very senior member of the bar. She was the chair of FIDA in the 80s, and she told us how vocal they were. And she really intrigued me. She said, sasa mimi nataka kurudi kwa LSK kwa fujo, because naona LSK imekuwa vile ilikuwa wakati wetu. This is how I want women leaders to be. And I'm a very proud man, because I have 10 women in my council. I think I'm more advantaged than was Moses before me. I think if he had 10 women leading him on the way to Canaan, they will have arrived in 2 weeks. No wonder, therefore, you see, we're able to make tremendous progress. Yeah. So there is no handicap. But at the national level, there is a big problem. Decisions have been made by courts that the 2/3 gender rule must be honored. And if it's not honored, then Parliament must be dissolved. Petitions are lying before Chief Justice David Maraga, and I don't know why he's procrastinating on this issue. A few days ago, I met the women of Kenya here, and they told me we need now to be proactive, because I can say without any fear of contradiction, FIDA is not doing its work as it used to do when Justice Dr. Nancy Baraza was chair and Martha Karua was vice chair. They were more vocal than even the opposition then. But we are not accustomed to lame lamentations. We will not say we can't do anything because FIDA has said it will not do anything. We will do something for the women of Kenya, because the women of Kenya are our grandmothers, they are our mothers, they are our wives, they are our sisters. And for those who are not married, they are your girlfriends. We must assist them. We must ensure that the Constitution is complied with insofar as the 2/3 gender rule is concerned. And through the Gender Committee of the Law Society, we're going to pursue this issue to its conclusion. These people say that we are very antagonistic. We cannot be antagonistic when we're asking you to do that which is lawful and just. And if you perceive it to be antagonistic, then you better find a firm ground, because we'll push you. And may I tell the President of the Republic of Kenya, and the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya that we want the 2/3 gender rule to be fully actualized. If we don't have 2/3 of women in the National Assembly, in the Senate, in the county assemblies, and in the bodies that appoint officers, then we've got a big problem with you. We will ask that Parliament be dissolved. Not next year, now.
Thank you. Maybe I can add something on that. In the last council, I convened the Gender Committee, and we presented a memorandum to Parliament on the two-parts gender rule. And just to pick up from where the people have said, this issue has been over-litigated, and we have decrees that have not been honored. So I think now that the Federal Council must take up to ensure that those decrees have been honored. If I'm not wrong, there's already a decree that the CJ dissolves Parliament, and I think we need to take it on because there's no more work to be done in court. It has been exhausted.
So it's time for enforcement now.
Yes, time for enforcement and implementation and execution.
So one more question before I stop. As we've heard, your track record is full of so many accomplishments. It's only 100 days and drastic changes have happened, especially as compared to previous LSK administrations. Your tenure is only for 2 years, and there have been calls from members. You won by a landslide victory. There have been calls from members to amend the Constitution so that you can stay in power longer. What are your views on that, and just generally your views in terms of amending a constitution for the convenience of a certain leadership or power or dynasty to stay in power? Please.
I don't know where my mother got the name Nelson. I don't think it was Nelson Trafalgar, but I think it must have been from Nelson Mandela.
Oh, okay.
I do not have any intention whatsoever of staying my welcome longer than necessary. This work is burdensome, my friend. My hair has grown white within 2 months. Not because I'm old, I'm very young, but because of the pressure of work. In fact, if I was to write my memoirs for the term that I'll be in office, I think they will be appropriately titled The Burden of Office. Look, a good leader is one who serves within a short period of time. Otherwise, if I was to serve you for 4 years, you'll be able to see many of my bad traits. I want you to see my good traits, and those should be the traits that will improve the society. But before I leave the helm of leadership of the Law Society, I want LSK Plaza to occupy this land. I don't want us to spend money in hotels for conferences and seminars. I want us to have an auditorium here where we can sit a maximum of 400 people. I want, by the time we go for the next election that relates to the Law Society of Kenya, and I think this is for the women represented to the Judicial Service Commission, we have an elaborate electronic system of voting. We don't want to delegate this role to other entities. I want Muzala, I want Aska, I want Doreen, I want Jamuru, everybody here to be able to run for president of the Law Society without going to counties to ask governors to finance you with the projects. It is very costly to run for this office. I want members of the Law Society to realize that you don't need money to run for office. You just need to distinguish yourself in your service to the Kenyan public, to the lawyers, because that is the hallmark of leadership. That is the legacy I want to leave behind, because it has been very difficult for me to run for office. Deep state, government, putting all roadblocks, tax compliance certificate, threatening you with prosecution, threatening you that they will release videos. You saw the other day they released videos of Maraga. You'll think that they have content? This is bullshit. We need to be able to lead the society, to serve the society, without looking back as to what they're going to do to you. Because it is not remunerated. You need to forego your practice for 2 years, so that when we sit here and make these decisions, those who want to have a divergent view must realize we're not making money out of this child. We volunteer to serve, and I want many to volunteer to serve as and when we leave office, and for the entire duration of your life as advocates.
So thank you. Thank you very much. We have a question from Munzala regarding LSK Plaza, your dreams, and the current premises. But before we get into that question, we're just going to screen a video of the current premises. And then from there, we'll take Munzala's question and comments.
Friends, at the AGM we have requested that the membership approves a notice of motion in which we want to develop Gitanga Road. This building has been condemned by the Nairobi County government. The more reason as to why the need for us to develop it into an ultra-modern plaza is needed now more than ever. You can see the congested atmosphere in which our very good receptionist works here. Oweru, you admit there is a need for us to transform into an ultra-modern facility. The plague that we have set here for our past chair and past presidents is already full. And you can see it's also congested. The need to expand is quite evident. Let me take you upstairs. We see how our secretariat is doing, and the need for us to expand and have more space. This ideally is the congested room. How are you? Uko salama? Yes, it is a congested room where the support staff for the secretariat works. Ideally, an organization of this magnitude requires at least 1,000 and a maximum of 2,000 square feet for the secretariat to work optimally. Let's look at our boardroom facility so that we realize the need for us to improve. How are you? Enjoying your lunch? Good. This small room, not even 100 square feet is our boardroom. Often we have many meetings that have to be held by the council, committees, and such meetings have to be held elsewhere in hotels. We incur a lot of expenses because we cannot hold a meeting here. And the situation is even dire. With the digital age, we'll need a facility that can effectively accommodate the people in that meeting, and if it is being transmitted, the people at the other end. And of course, behind us is Gitanga Road. You realize you cannot have any meaningful business here with the noise. Good. Sorry. These are our washroom facilities. This building has been here for over 40 years. It is no longer conducive for use in these times. Let's see what we have down there. And remember, the Secretariat hosts about 40 staff. This building alone is less than 3,000 square feet. This is a waiting room. We need a modern waiting room, a lobby where members can be served, where the members of the public can be adequately taken care of, and where good business can be undertaken even as they wait for somebody to serve them. There have had to be some improvements on account of a container that has been fabricated. A lot of business is done here. Come, we have a look. This, friends, is where we store our files. It is a shame a premium bar association should not be having such a mega facilities to store its files. Even the washroom facilities, they are very limited, bearing in mind the human traffic here, both on account of staff and the members that are being served. The more reason, therefore, why we need to take a firm position on the 23rd of July. We need to decide between this property and Mombasa Road, which one do we keep? But from the viable studies that have been conducted, together with the recommendations, it looks more prudent to develop Gitanga Road as opposed to Mombasa Road. Let's see the outer side of the container. Another container here where many of our staff are housed. Now, if you look behind us, this is the available space that has not been developed here in Gitanga Road. The entire property is slightly over 1 acre. In this zone, we have the potential of developing an ultra-modern plaza that can go as high as 6th floor and as low as 3 parking bays. That is sufficient to take care of our office, to make provision for small offices for the branches, to have a conference facility, to have a library, to have a clubhouse, and all the necessary facilities that advocates may require to enable their business run smoothly, and also for recreation. We don't need to go to, is it 1824? Yeah, you don't need to go to 1824. You can have your facility here. You don't need to go to Serena for exercise. You can do it here. You understand? And that is what I've thought is important to let you know, so that as we mark our 100 days in office, we can objectively evaluate where have we come from, where are we, and where should we be. So far, we have attained several milestones within the first 100 days. But I believe the best legacy that we leave for the society and those who will come after us is to develop this place in the manner in which I've requested. So come the 23rd of July, please make an informed consideration. The sale of the South Sea property may be sufficient to give us the structure, the frame. But the finer details of the building will require input from the members. A member may volunteer to buy a window, may volunteer to furnish a meeting room, a library, and many of our senior colleagues have said they are ready, willing, and able to do that. I've gotten the assurance from Honorable Paul Muite that he'll be prepared to put in something. I've gotten assurance from Senior Counsel Nasir Abdullahi, say he'll be prepared to put something. Senior Counsel Tom Ojenda is ready, willing, and able to put something. And even on my part, I want to have the Nelson Harvey auditorium or the Nelson Harvey wing of the library. We stock the library. Sawa. Ama namna gani?
Very important.
Yeah. Good.
have a lot of ego. People always want to have something to say, even if it means disagreeing. Thank you. That was a video of our current premises here at Gitanga Road. And our colleague, Mr. Munzala, would like to say some comments and questions about the current situation. Munzala, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Councillor.
Yes, I'm quite impressed with what we've achieved in the first 1 or 2 the leadership of the Kenya scheme. It's quite commendable how you steer the team as well. And for me, I'm more passionate about physical development and anything else. So, at the mention that you quite intend to move the membership to give you the permission to develop this property, I was quite happy. So, contrary to what was done before, contrary to the process that were taken before, I'm hoping and assuming that you'll take quite a side approach to speak to the membership to now allow you to engage to this enterprise. So, I don't know what plans you have to reach out to the membership and your expectation of the membership or your expectation to the partners that you want to bring on board to ensure that you actualize whatever it is that you want to actualize insofar as developing this property.
Okay. Now, this area, the zone does not permit any building past 6 floors. So we must confine ourselves to that zone. The cost of building the frame alone of the building will be about 250 million. The time frame, you're looking at between 6 to 8 months putting up such a structure. The property we have in South Sea has been with us for more than 30 years. The council has drafted a motion requesting members to approve the sale of that property so that we raise the monies to enable us come up with the frame of the building. But as I've indicated when I took you through the building, we may need to finalize the details of the building to our perfection. Will therefore require more money. I do not want to levy members to contribute toward this cause. I want members to contribute from their own. And I can tell you, there are very many members, especially senior members of the bar, who have pledged their support. Others have gone as far as pledging close to 5 million. And it doesn't matter how much you're able to pledge or bring in. Whatever amount, just bring it. Corril tackled me on Twitter and said, if his picture is not in this album, then the album is null and void ab initio. Donald, I can see your picture here. You are here. At another point, you are speaking to the former Chief Justice, Dr. Willie Mutunga, and here you are speaking to the President. So Donald, because of your seniority in the society, I think we'll fine you. We'll give you this album. It takes 40,000 to produce the 2 volumes, but I purpose to sell the album at a maximum of 100, and for 100 I'm targeting the senior lawyers. Anybody above 5 years in practice, if you come and find your photograph here, take the album for 100,000 shillings. 40 will go towards the production, and 60 will go towards the development. If you are below 10 years and you find your photograph here and you are desirous of buying this, you can buy it for between 60 and 80, the 2 volumes, depending on your years of practice, so that we're able to raise funds. But forward, we'll want to encourage members just to, you can even buy a bag of cement. You can buy a window frame. You can buy a seat. You can buy an entire conference hall or meeting room. You can buy the library. You can furnish the clubhouse. You can furnish the gym. You can furnish the auditorium. And of course, we will be very happy to have the Javier Munzala meeting room or the Javier Munzala reception desk. Yeah, these are ways in which we can raise funds to bring up this noble project. I think it's doable. For those who have built their houses, it's something that we can do very easily if we team up together and realize that we are a premium bar. Other bars in Africa have done much more. The Teacher Service Commission have a building in the Central Business District. Really? Lawyers? There is a problem. My mother is a teacher. My father was a teacher. The fellows own a building in the Central Business District. Here we are lawyers, we don't have a building. Let's do something for ourselves.
Thank you. And thank you, Munzala, for your contribution. Please, can you pass the mic to Doreen so she can say a word or two before our final speaker, Jamu, says his comments or his questions, and then we'll wind up with it.
Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
My name is Doreen Kubai, and mine is not a question, it's rather a comment. I'd like to say congratulations, Mr. President, Vice President, and all the council members for these 100 days of bravery and vibrancy. I think this was missed, especially in our previous leadership, and we will be supporting you throughout. And I believe I speak for many that we made a good choice in February. So do not let us down. I believe you will not let us down. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mine, Mr. Harvey, was on your third pillar, defending rule of law and constitutionalism. You have told us that we have received emails from the Law Society of Kenya asking us to give them orders that have not been obeyed by the court. Now, my question is this. Once the Law Society receives them, what are they going to do with them? That is my question.
We have received about 200 orders against the government. Because the government has withheld money from the citizenry, then there is a big problem. Then there is the second category of orders that are of compulsive nature, that compel the government to do something. We will also ask the Attorney General, as the legal advisor of the Republic of Kenya, and who has the final responsibility as to whether or not a court order has been civilized society. So we'll give him a fair hearing, both on the money decrease and the other compulsive decrease. We'll give him, as usual, 14 days to tell us if there is any handicap. If there is an appeal pending against a court order, then we'll abide by the outcome of the appeal. But if there is no appeal, or if an appeal has been lodged and lost, then the state must pay with him. The state must comply with the compulsive orders. And if they don't, then we'll take it further. You remember on the 18th of March 2018, Justice Odunga gave an order relating to CS Matiang'i, Dr. Kihalangwa, and I think then the Inspector General of Police, indicating that they were unsuitable to continue holding public office for the reason that they disobeyed a court order. To go for elective office. Some of them even for the President of the Republic of Kenya. We're not going to allow you to run for public office if you have abused your public office as a state officer. So we'll go a step further. will file a petition in court enumerating the individuals behind those offices. Your office will not protect you. If you are Dr. Fred Matiang'i and you've disobeyed a court order, we're coming for you personally. If you are Kariuki Kihara and you've disobeyed a court order, we're coming for you personally. So that we have a declaration that you are unsuitable to hold public office. So that next year, when you want to be Chief Justice and you've disobeyed a court order, we'll say, no, the matter is in court. Or a determination has been made. You're not suitable to become Chief Justice. You're not suitable to run for office as President of the Republic of Kenya. You're not suitable to run for office as Governor. You're not suitable to run for office as Member of the County Assembly. Because if we don't do this, we'll have crooks running for office. And we have so many crooks in public office. Let us have leaders of integrity. People like Barack Obama. You understand? Let us have leaders that are accountable. Not individuals who get pride in their transgressions as a justification to say, okay, fine, I've been acquitted of this, I've done this, so I'm going home for a homecoming. And when I reach home, I declare my interest to run for public office. The culture of Kenyans electing individuals who do not obey the law, individuals who do not have ideals for a good society, must come to an end.
Thank you very much. Any final words, Madam VP, please, to the society?
Yes. Just to assure,
I think we have not had a forum where we can thank members for the support that they accorded us and put us in office with full trust and faith that we will serve them. Mine is to give them a commitment that together with the President and the Council, we will serve them passionately and diligently as promised in our manifestos. Of course, I will still run with my mantra, welfare first. I will do anything within my reach to serve members. Every time they reach me, I am reachable, and I will not stop picking calls even after we have given a hotline. I encourage members to reach out to me and to reach out to us as a council if they have any issues that they need to raise with us. We take the criticism, both negative and positive, and we will always put the criticism of whatever nature into consideration. We are not in competition. We are serving members. We will carry on with service to members for the next 2 years. I give my undertaking that whatever I have to do together with my president and the council members, I will do to ensure that we take this society to a level above where we found it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Harvey, in conclusion, any parting shots or calls to members?
Friends, on the 27th of February 2020, you gave me an overwhelming mandate to serve you. You gave me 2,675 votes. Imagine between myself and the person who came next is 1,600. I didn't know that you will elect me. I didn't know that you will not elect me. But I knew in the event that you were to elect me or not elect me, the margin between myself and the person next will have been 200,000. But you did the most unexpected thing. You made a decision that was definitive. You were firm in your choice. Do not expect me to be malleable. Do not expect me to keep quiet. Do not expect me to be indolent, because I speak on your behalf. You told me to go and do things. You told me to go and speak on your behalf. I'm doing these things. And if I was not doing the things that you asked me to do, then the retaliation that we are facing from big states and from those who do not subscribe to the brave new bar man promise you that with your support, we'll be able to achieve all the three-point agenda, and we may do more to leave the society better than we found it. But most importantly, may I thank you, young, middle, and senior advocates, for restoring the lost glory of the society. The glory of the society does not benefit me alone. When I punch and get it, you've gotten it. I'll ensure that what you've given me to do will be done. And whoever takes over from me will have a very conducive atmosphere of serving as the president of the Law Society of Kenya. Mungu ambariki na mwashukuru sana.
On that note, thank you very much.